When dealing with film, one of the most important elements that has to be considered is the use of lighting. It can convey meaning more than any other aspect of film when dealing with on-screen performances. Lighting is used in all films, from poorly lit horrors to overexposed romances, as a way to convey meaning to the audience. A good example of using lighting to set the scene and tone of the film is from Frank Darabont's The Shawshank Redemption from 1994. This can be seen in the scene where Morgan Freeman's character is going to be asked if he is ready to leave prison. The opening to the scene, when he is entering the office to start with, starts off mainly dark with only a small amount of light showing. The dark setting then opens into light when the door is opened, which may be foreshadowing that Red will be being released in terms of the light at the end of the tunnel metaphor. The lighting and shadows in the background help to show that the scene is set in an office due to the patterns of the blinds on the wall and over his face. This helps the audience establish that he is in the office and that the scene could be considered quite formal. The bars that are going across his face may also have been used as a metaphor to show that he is still incarcerated within the prison system. However, as the scene plays on and the clip then goes into a close-up of Freeman, the shadows disappear from across his face to suggest he will be getting his freedom. Although our film is not necessarily a horror film, it was important to us to make sure that the lighting was correct in order to help the audience understand the atmosphere that we wanted to create. For example, in the first scene we shot, the chase scene outside, we wanted to use the street lights, and the lights were just outside to give the orange glow and the high contrasting shadows, which juxtapose the brighter and white lights of the car headlights in the background. When filming this scene, in a take that we were not able to use due to the actor laughing, a tail light was on, casting a red glow on the face of our actor. This would have been a very effective form of lighting, as typically the colour red represents danger and warning. However, due to this being an accident while filming, we were not able to always have the light on her face. When it came to filming the interior shots of the film, we then needed to start adding in artificial lights to create the atmosphere that we needed. In particular, the scenes filmed in the bedroom required a lot of planning and testing to give the right feel to the film. In the scenes where she is waking up in the morning, we decided to use the LED lights set to the warm orange setting to mimic the sun rising in the morning. This gave a soft glow in the room to allow the audience to work out that the scene was set in the morning and the sequence prior was all a dream. When looking at lighting, there are many ways in which it can be approached. One of the most commonly used lighting setups is that of the 3-point lighting system. This is where there is a key light, which is the main light that is used to light the subject, a fill light that is slightly softer to take away darker shadows, and a backlight which is used to light the back of the subject to show the viewer the distance between the subject and the background. In our film, we did not use a 3-point lighting system. Instead, we lit the scene as to how we thought it would create the most drama using a combination of different lighting techniques. In my research images, I was testing the different ways that the person would look under certain lights and the effects it would have on them, therefore allowing me to see how it would be best to adjust the lights when we came to filming. In this first image, I only used the one main light in my room. The image does not look that interesting and falls flat as the light from above creates unwanted shadows under the eyes and on the neck and makes the clothing all look like it has merged into one. In the second image, I have used only the desk lamp in my room. Again, this yellow light creates unflattering shadows across the left-hand side of the body. This takes away almost all detail on the shape of the body and the clothes. However, it may be useful if you want to make a scene look more natural and to create a harsh shadow. I then moved on to using LED lights to see the type of effect that they would have when lighting a subject. I started off by only using one light to set the balance of warm and cool lights, but making sure that the light wasn't very strong. This then resulted in me getting a lot of noise in the image, which I did not want. I would have to consider this as we had planned to film some scenes at night, which would mean I would have to get the balance right when filming these scenes. In this image, I then increased the brightness of the light, which gave a more flattering look to the subject. However, this again meant that any definition in the clothes was lost, which would mean that I would have to consider the brightness of the lights to allow the audience to see more detail on the actor when it came to filming. When planning to film, we wanted some scenes to involve two lights. This meant practicing having them both set to the same setting to avoid one shadow being more defined than the other. However, this was a nice way of lighting the subject as it gave a slight shadow across the face without it being too obvious. This gave more definition to the face itself. In these two images, I put the light onto the coldest setting to see what difference the type of light had on a person. When the light was set to the coldest setting, it made the subject look very pale and washed out. This may work in some scenes as we wanted to recreate the middle of the night, and by having a cold light across the room it would represent moonlight coming in through a window. In this image, I then changed the setting of the light to the warmest it would go, which resulted in the subject looking as if the room was around mid-morning. This is a good use of lighting, as we are planning to have some shots set in the morning. By doing these tests, it has allowed me to see what type of lighting I need to recreate when it comes to filming to ensure that the lighting will match the scene taking place. In this clip, I again was testing the different types of light. One of the things I was testing for was the shadows that were being cast, as we were wanting to represent different times of the day, meaning that the shadows would have to reflect that. There was an extreme difference from going from the warm orange to the cool blue, which we would use in the scenes that were meant to represent the middle of the night. By having Kitty in the test footage as well, it allowed us to see if someone would look unflattering under certain lights, allowing us to get the setting of the lights right for when we began filming. Another way that we develop the use of lighting in the film can be seen in the shots where the camera is outside looking into the room. As the girl comes towards the window to shut them, the light behind her casts the silhouette of a figure, which then frames within the frame of the window. I feel as though this is a very effective shot that has been enhanced by the use of lighting, as if this shot was to be filmed in daylight and the audience could see the girl's face, it would feel a bit flat. However, as the girl's face cannot be seen, it leaves the audience guessing as to what she's feeling. Another technique we used when it came to lighting the scenes can be seen through our use of practical lighting, which is when no extra lights are used apart from what can be seen in the frame. In this clip, we only used the light that we had in the room at the time, such as the desk lamp on the bedside table and the main light in the room. What I feel is effective in this shot is that, unlike in other films where a character enters a room and turns on the light, turning off the light gives a sense of mystery, as the audience are less able to see what is happening in the room. By only using the one lamp as well, it makes the scene look more realistic to the audience, as there is not too much extra light that may be casting multiple shadows over the walls. In my previous film, we used practical lighting throughout the whole film as we wanted to keep the scene looking as natural as possible. However, this was a problem when filming outside, as some of the second scenes in the film came out overexposed, as we had not controlled for how bright the scene would look on camera. When we began to introduce the stalker into the scene, we tried to emulate the Coen brothers' motel room scene in No Country for Old Men, when Moss is in the room and sees Sugar's shadow outside his room. In this clip from the film, the shadow is much more pronounced and defined, creating the suspense that the film requires to build the tension. In our attempt at the scene, our shadows were not as defined. This was because we only used the light that was available in the hall, and as it was so diffused, it meant that the shadows appeared weaker. To improve this, we would refilm, but hold an LED light directly above the door to help the shadows appear more defined and help create the tension that the scene needs. When filming the scenes where the stalker was in the room with the girl, we then had to adjust the lighting so that it represented almost the middle of the night. To do this, we had to ensure that the camera was still able to pick up the light, and by having it set to the cool blue setting, it represented more of a moonlit sequence. When the light shines around the room, however, we try to emulate it as though a car was passing by outside, therefore giving us enough light to allow the audience to see the stalker in the background without it being too obvious. However, looking back at the footage, it may be that we need to film certain scenes again as they are very dark. This may be able to be altered in post-production, but it may then lead to the image becoming increasingly grainy. If we were to reshoot this scene, we would make sure that there was more light maybe concentrated on the girl to allow the audience to see her clearly before the stalker is introduced into the frame.